Hello creators, welcome back to the beginner's guide to Photoshop. So in today's video, I'll be showing you some of the essential tools that every beginner needs to know. Whether you are editing photos or creating designs, mastering these tools is the first step to becoming a Photoshop pro. Let's get into it. So once you open the Photoshop, you would see the toolbar on your left like this. This is where most of the magic happens. Let's start with the first tool. So the first tool that we'll be talking about today is the Move tool. And the shortcut for the Move tool is V. So you can press V on your keyboard to activate the Move tool. You can press V on your keyboard to activate the Move tool, or you can come to this top left corner here and then you select the Move tool like this, right? Now let's see what the Move tool does. Okay, the Move tool allows you to move layers on the canvas. Okay, now this is the Move tool. And these are your layers. These things here are your layers, right? So the Move tool would basically allow you to reposition your layer on the particular canvas. This entire thing is the canvas, right? So for instance, if I want to move the picture of me here to the left side, what I can do is I can double click on the picture, and you can see as I double click on the picture, it indicates the picture in this layer down here, right? If I double click on the picture, it would indicate the picture. Let's do it for a different example. Let's say if I double click on the Photoshop icon like this, right, it will indicate that particular layer here, right? So the Move tool would allow me to move this particular Photoshop layer around, just as you can see me do. I can choose to place it here and then leave it. So what you do is you double click on the layer you want to move, and then you move it to that particular spot that you want to move it to. Do you understand the concept? Let's try it with this Photoshop text here. So you double click on it, it would indicate as shown here, right? And then you would move it around like this, right? Cool. So that is basically how the Move tool is used. You just use the Move tool to move layers on the canvas. So the Move tool, this Move tool, to move any layer here on that particular canvas, right? And this would help you reposition things on the canvas very well, right? Making your work look neat and then helping you to streamline your editing, right? Now let's move to the next tool. The next tool that we'll be talking about is the Selection tool, right? And the Selection tool can be found here. And the shortcut for the Selection tool is W. So you can hit W on your keyboard, and then it would send you to this Selection tool, right? Now under the Selection tool, we have sub tools. Like if you right click on it, you can see the Object Selection tool, you can see the Magic Wand Selection tool. But for this tutorial, we'll be tackling just the Quick Selection tool because that's what you'll be using most often. Let's change our canvas to this particular one and then understand how the Selection tool works. Okay, so what the Selection tool does is it helps you to select subjects, right? And after selecting subjects, you can choose to manipulate those subjects you've selected, or you can remove those subjects from the background, or you can do anything with that selected portion that you've done. Okay, let me demonstrate an example. So for instance, if I double click and I drag on top of this person like this, you can clearly see that there are these short dashes that are moving around the person. This has indicated that everywhere that this short dash has selected, I have also selected. You get me? So for instance, if I'm to zoom in like this, you can clearly see down here that this part has not been selected. This particular part has not been selected. Now what do we do? To add more selections, you hold the shift, right? You hold the shift and then you click on the part that you want to add, right? And let's say we can add a selection here as well, right? Let's say if I want to remove a selection, you hold Alt or Option on your keyboard. So like this, Alt or Option, and you can see that it has changed into minus, right? So you just use it to subtract the part that you don't want. You catch? Exactly. Let's move to. So now let's see what this Selection tool can help us to do. So one thing that this Selection tool can help us to do is to remove our subjects from the background like this. So now this is a background free layer, right? Let me hit Ctrl Z. Okay, so you can choose to remove it from the background, or you can choose to edit just that particular size. For instance, if I come to adjustments here, if I come to brightness and contrast, look at what will happen. If I decrease it, it will decrease just the selected area. If I decrease this, it will decrease just the selected area. You feel me? Let's hit on cancel. Okay, now moving to the third tool, we have the brush tool. Okay, the brush tool is one crucial tool that you'll be needing in your edit most often, right? Now, to activate the brush tool, you can either come down here and then select the brush tool, or one easy way you can get the brush tool is by hitting B on your keyboard, right? So if you hit B, the brush tool will be selected. But before we proceed in this video, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe, because at the end, the tool that you'll be finding out will be very interesting and will help you on your journey as a beginner. So without much ado, if you actually want to know the shortcut keyboards, when you just hover your mouse around that particular element, so let's say if I come here, you can clearly see that Photoshop will give you this thing here and give you the name of the tool and then its shortcut. So this V means this is shortcut. Let's go to the brush tool. So if you come to the brush, you can see brush tool and its shortcut is B, right? So you can learn all these shortcuts and it will really come in handy. Now let's see how the brush tool is used. So when you select the brush tool like this, it has a lot of options up here, right? You can choose to change how you want the brush to be, being hard or anything. So you should navigate these parts and then check all these things you can do with the brush tool, right? You can choose to change the blending mode of the brush tool, right? But for this tutorial, let me keep it normal. You can choose to change the opacity, which is how intense you want it to be. So if you make it 100, it will be extremely intense. You can choose to change the flow and all these things. And now let's see what the brush tool does. The brush tool picks information from your foreground color here, right? So just as you can see, the foreground color we have here is black. So if I'm to brush, this is just going to give me a black color, right? But if I am to come here, double click on it and then change the foreground color to maybe yellow, pick yellow and hit OK, you can see that now the brush tool would paint with a yellow color. Do you get it? If I'm to double click again, let's try for one more time, and then change the color to a reddish color, you can see that the brush tool will start painting with a reddish color. You get it? And this is how the brush tool is. It's basically used for painting. The brush tool is used for making fantastic painting or adding artistic elements, right? So if you hit on B on your keyboard, you will be able to use the brush tool very well. Now, another important thing you should know when using the brush tool is you can use your close bracket or open bracket to either decrease the size of the brush or increase the size of the brush. Now let's try a practical example. So if I hit the close bracket key on my keyboard, you can see that the size of the brush is decreasing. So if I make, you can see that now the size has decreased, right? The brush tool has decreased. But if I want to increase the size, I can hit the open bracket on my keyboard. I'll continue hitting it so it's opening, right? And just as you can see, if I paint this time, it becomes extremely large. You feel me? Another way that you can change the size of your brush is by coming here and then changing the size here, right? So you can change the size here or increase the size here. So this is one way of doing it as well. Now let's move to our other tool. Which would be, let me close this panel like this. Okay, excuse me. So the other tool, the fourth tool we'll be talking about is the erase tool. And just as I told you, if you hover around it, it's going to give you the name and what the shortcut is for, right? So you can see that we have erase tool and the shortcut is E. So if we want to get the erase tool, we can just hit E on our keyboard and it will take us to the erase tool, right? Now similarly, just as you could decrease the brush size and then increase the brush size, you can similarly do the same thing for the erase tool by hitting the open bracket and the close bracket to increase and decrease it, right? Now what does the erase tool do? The erase tool removes parts of that particular layer permanently. You get it? So for instance, this is the only layer we have here now, right? So if I'm to use the erase tool here, it's going to clean everything on that particular layer. So let's see an example. So I'm cleaning everything. Just as you can see, everything is gone with the erase tool, right? Now let's look for another example. If I am to come here, right? Let me give this thing. If I am to come here and let's say I'm to draw this, right? I am to draw a rectangle on top of my already existing layer. You can see that we have one layer beneath and we have one layer on top. So if I'm to select the erase tool by pressing E on my keyboard, if I'm to select the erase tool, you can clearly see that it would select this particular layer, right? So since it's this particular layer that I'm on, any erasing I do here would affect this top layer, right? And won't affect the down layer because I'm not on that particular layer, right? But if I'm to come here and then I am to clean anything down here, it would clean what is on the under layer but not what is on top, right? So let's see a practical example. So let me go back to the top layer, and then let me decrease the size a bit. So let's say I want to reveal the person, so I can do some cleaning like this, and just as you can see, the person beneath has been revealed, right? Now let's select this particular layer. If I select this particular layer and I'm on the rectangle, if I clean, you can see that nothing is cleaning. But once I come to the subject here, I'll be able to clean that subject out. Why? Because I am now on that subject layer. You feel me? So the erase tool cleans something permanently based on the layer that it's on, right? Now another tool that will come in very, very handy is the text tool. What does the text tool do? It helps you to type anything I want to type in Photoshop. So to type, you just hit C on your keyboard to give you the text tool, and then you can come to your canvas and double click, and after double clicking, you hit backspace to erase whatever is there, and then you type in your new text. So I can hit freedom, right? So after hitting whatever you want to type, you hit escape on your keyboard, right? So if you hit escape on your keyboard, I can bring this layer on top, right? I'll make a separate video on layers, and that will help you navigate how these layers work, right? Now you cannot see your text because our text is in the same color as the square that we drew. So let's change the color. So if we change the color to blue, now you can see the text appear, right? So now this is our text, right? So the text tool is just used for typing text. Now let's see another important tool that will be needed, which is the zoom tool. Because this zoom tool, if you are editing photos, will help you to navigate your zoomed in canvas based on that particular part, so that it gets more details about that particular part you want to edit, right? So for instance, I want to really navigate this freedom part, right? But it's looking so small that I can't even see. What do? I can use the zoom tool, and you can hit Z on your keyboard to activate the zoom tool. And when you activate the zoom tool, you come to that particular part that you want in detail, and then you just keep double clicking. So you just double click, right? So when you double click, and let's say you want to pan, you hold the space bar or the mouse on your keyboard, and then you drag it down. Another way that you can do this is also to come to this scroll wheel here, and then be dragging it, or the scroll wheel down here, and then be dragging it like this. You feel me? Now if you want to decrease your zoom, you can hold Alt, and you can see that it changes into minus, and then you just double click again, and you can see that the zooming comes down, right? Now on a keyboard, we have shortcuts that can really help you, and those are the things that I often use. So if you hit Ctrl and minus on your keyboard, it will zoom out. If you hit Ctrl and plus, it will zoom in. Ctrl and minus, zoom out. Ctrl and plus, zoom in. So this is how you can zoom in and zoom out. So just as you can see, you can now get a clear view of this particular text that you are working with, right? And if you want to zoom into the original size of the canvas, you hit Ctrl-0. So like this, Ctrl-0, and then it will fit back to that particular canvas, right? Now let's make a summary of everything that we've done in this video so far, okay? So this is an empty canvas, and then we'll be working with all the tools that we've spoken about on this empty canvas, right? So the first tool that we spoke about was the move tool, which is shortcut is what? V. Exactly. So now the move tool has been selected. So we want to move this subject to that canvas that we want to work with, and this is the particular canvas that we want to work with. So what you do is you double click and you do what? You move it, right? So you move this around like this, just as you can see, and now this subject is on this new canvas, right? And if we double click, because the move tool is still selected, if we double click and move it, we'll still be able to move it around. Exactly. Now what is the other tool that we spoke about? We spoke about the selection tool, right? Now I want to get this image back. So to select, what do? You hit on what? W, and then the selection tool will be made, right? Now an easy way that you can select subject is by coming up here and hitting select subject, okay? But if you hit select subject, make sure you are on that particular layer, and Photoshop is automatically going to select the subject for you like this, right? And to remove it from the layer, you just come to this mask here, and then you hit it like this. So when you hit it, this has been selected, right? So we want to move this subject also to the original canvas. So you hit what? V for the move tool to be activated, and then you double click, and then you move it to the canvas that you want to work on like this. So you just double click, and then you drag it on like this. You double click, and then you just drag it on like this. Right? Exactly. So something like this. and then you hit enter. So once you hit enter, it would be on that new canvas you are working with. Now, what other tool did we speak about again? We spoke about the brush tool, whose shortcut command is what? B. So we hit B on our keyboard, and then we can change the foreground color to anything at all that we want. We can change the foreground color to anything at all that we want. So let's change the foreground color to maybe blue. So like this. And then you can increase the size by hitting the open space, or decreasing the size by hitting the close space. And what do? We just paint around where we want to make our, let's say we want to add some glow effect to the back of this guy like this. So you can just increase it and then click once like this, right? Now you can see that it's on top of the guy because this particular layer is on top. So what we can do is we just double click and then drag this layer beneath, and then it's gone down. Now let's add another glow to the back of this as well. So you can add an adjustment layer like this. Drag it beneath the subject that we want it to happen under, and then we just come and change our color to maybe yellow, and all we do is we just brush like this, exactly just as you can see it happen. Now the other tool we spoke about was the erase tool, and its shortcut command is what? E on your keyboard, right? Let's say we want to erase some of the lights, right? We have to be on that particular layer. So we have to be on this blue layer because we want to erase some of these blue layers. So you just be on this blue layer, and then you can see that it would erase this blue layer. Now if I come to this subject, it's not going to erase this because I'm not on this particular layer. Just as you can see, no matter what I'll do, it will not erase it. But if I come to the blue layer, it's going to erase this blue layer, just as you can see. So it can erase everything on this blue layer, just as you can see me do like this, because the blue layer has been selected, right? Exactly. And let's hit Ctrl J to come back to where we were normally. And the last tool that we spoke about was the zoom tool. Let's say we want to get more detail of the face here, right? So we just hit Z on our keyboard, and then we'll double click on the face like this. And just as you can see, you have an enlarged image of the particular place that you want in detail. So thank you for watching my video, and make sure you subscribe to help me bring great contents to you like this. Peace, and I'm out.